All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to another edition of Deconversion Stories. And today I have the absolute pleasure talking with Mr. Ian Harris, who is a skeptic comedian, as he's self-proclaimed. And he has a great, I think it's an hour and a half long show on YouTube on his channel that you can check out. There is a link below to the channel. And there's also other ways you can stalk Ian if you feel like it. He's also an MMA trainer, and he's also a director. So we'll talk a little bit about that after we talk about the whole religion thing and the deconversion stuff and whatnot. But Ian, that's what I do here. I talk to people about whatever belief systems they were involved with, even if it was like woo shit or whatever, like how did you find your way out? How did the dominoes start falling? How did it affect your friends, family, relationship type things? So why don't you kind of take us back to when you were in some sort of a belief and how you kind of scratched and crawled your way out of there into becoming the A, hilarious comedian, B, awesome skeptic that you are today.
Well, first off, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm always on this level. I'm a little bit of a letdown. I'm going to be honest with you, but I do have a little bit of a story. I have always been an atheist.
Okay.
I was born an atheist. Now, I kind of think I was always a skeptic, we all are, exactly right. I just was never indoctrinated. But I will say that I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, which is in the 70s, right? So Santa Cruz, if you know anything about it, it's basically after the 60s, all the hippies just moved to Santa Cruz and started a commune. So it was a cool place to grow up, especially in the 80s. A lot of counterculture, a lot of different ideas, different groups of kids that hung out with each other. It wasn't like you see on the after school specials with the cool kids and the not cool. I mean, there was some of that, of course, but it was pretty open, pretty accepting. But there's a lot of woo. So even though my dad was an atheist and my mom isn't religious, my mom was raised Irish Catholic, but she kind of denounced all of that. My mom was a New Ager. So my mom changed her name for I think it was like a numerology thing. She's a psychic. My mom is still a psychic. And I'm putting that in air quotes if you're only listening. She believes she's a psychic. She's not some sort of fraud person who goes out there and tries to fake you. She really believes she's a psychic. And she, she's Hindu-ish now. I think feel that New Age thing is kind of always Eastern.
The Deepak Chopra kind of crap, right?
Yeah, a little bit of that, right? And she's been to India and all that sort of stuff. So I grew up with this idea that I kind of found funny that when I look back at it, I guess how religious people see Jesus or God or Muhammad or whoever it is, that's just part of life, right? I guess if you grow up with that, it's Jesus is here and he comes and watches me masturbate or whatever they think Jesus does. I don't know. But Jesus is here and he's doing this and that and guides my life and all that. Of course, they say. Oh, go ahead.
They say your beliefs are dictated by your geography and how you were raised, pretty much, right? So
right, exactly, and it's normal to you. So the one thing that was normal to me was psychic abilities and ghosts were a big thing because my mom. I mean, I never. The thing is, I never really got into it, but it helped really lead me down skepticism because I was very science oriented. My dad was an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in heaven. I didn't believe in an afterlife. I didn't believe in anything like that. But yet my mom talked about ghosts like they were, dishes in your dishwasher. Oh yeah, ghosts. Oh yeah, of course. There's a ghost over there. It was like a normal thing. So, my mom had all these stories about when she was growing up and she woke up and there was her uncle on the bed and he talked to her and all this sort of stuff. Right. And I grew up literally next door to a place in Santa Cruz that was called the Haunted House. And it was haunted house because back in the gold rush days, it was a cavalry captain who lived there that the creek was named after, and he had murdered a famous Mexican bandito named Joaquin Murrieta in my yard, and apparently had murdered his wife, and he went nuts, and he was, there was wars fought in my yard, and this scary barn in the back up on the waterfall in the creek looked like the haunted. Everyone was scared of the haunted house. So I grew up thinking, there's a haunted house and there's ghosts and all this sort of stuff. But and high psychic beliefs, because my mom would go to the Berkeley Psychic Institute and she would do psychic readings. And I used to think, well, I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe in any sort of supernatural stuff. So my whole life I was like, well, what's a scientific explanation for why there are ghosts, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't like, were there ghosts or were there not ghosts? But it's like, well, ghosts exist, but there's no afterlife and there's no soul. So what are they? So for a long time as a little kid, I had this idea that science was eventually going to figure out that when you die in a tragic way, that the molecules of your body stay in form and move around and repeat patterns. But I thought there was no consciousness to it. It was just something that, like a vapor that was left over, like boom, a cloud, you know what I mean? A cloud that was left over for a while. But I never thought of any agency behind it or any like malevolence or anything like that. But it was a long time of trying to stretch that into is there any science behind this? And it was, and I, by the time I was in my late teens and I was really getting into, I used to debate everybody about religion and all sort of stuff. I really started going, wait a second, maybe my mom is just completely wrong, and just started pulling away from it. And I got really into skepticism. I was always a skeptic, but I got really into skepticism when I was 18 or 19. There's here in Santa Cruz, because I'm in LA now, but in Santa Cruz, there's the junior college I went to, Cabrillo College, had a class called Argumentation and Persuasion. And I loved to argue. It was a speech class, and I was wanting to be a comedian, so I wanted to take a speech class. And it turned out it was literally a class on skepticism. He didn't call it that. He called it Argumentation and Persuasion. But all the class was identifying logical fallacies. We watched James Randi's videos. He's awesome. It was amazing. We had people come in and do the astrology test where you write down your thing and your birthday, and they go away and they come back with your horoscope, and then you read it and you say if it's valid, and then you pass it to the person next to you and you realize everyone has the same horoscope. We did all those tests. It was amazing. And I remember I was stuck I was arguing with a person, a friend of mine who was kind of smart, but kind of a religious nutty guy. And he used to always try to come up with, it wasn't a religious stuff, but he thought he was a philosopher. And he always had all these, he would try to bring out like all the different, the ontological argument and the Saint Anselm. And he'd always give me these ones. And I remember he gave me one of them. And I don't know if it was Thomas Aquinas or Saint Anselm. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them was this logical argument for the proof of God. Mm-hmm. And he goes, can you refute this? And it starts out with, do you believe that God is that which nothing greater can be conceived? And then it goes through these steps. If you believe that, then da-da-da-da, then da-da-da-da. And basically it proves that there is something that we cannot conceive, and they call that God, okay? Sure. And I was having trouble with it because I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And I remember I took it to the teacher. The guy, his name is Dan Rothwell, which is oddly enough, like a few months ago, I found him on Facebook. We're Facebook friends now. It's great. But I took it to the teacher. I said, hey, can you help me with this? He said, sure. He goes, read the first one. I said, do you believe that God or whatever is that which nothing greater can be conceived? He goes, nope, bye.
Which is exactly what I would say. I mean, is the greatest thing that can be conceived? Well, what if I conceive of a bigger, tougher, meaner God?
Right. Yeah. He's like, I reject your premise. Move on.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Premise one, rejected. We're done. Finished.
Yeah. And it's just like, I remember that was like this, because I always knew, but I was like looking at all the other, how could I pick apart all this other stuff? And he was just like, nope. And I went, oh, yeah, that's that simple, isn't it? And that's what it really solidified. And I actually made my wife, who's my wife now, she wasn't my wife then, I told her to take the class, and both my sisters who are older than me but went back to college, I told them they should take the class. And everyone I know I told, and I have a lot of people who took that class, and I have a few people who were deconverted from that class, which is pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. It was a pretty cool, I mean, a semester, one semester class in a junior college, but man, it was like going to a skeptic conference every single day for a semester. It was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I have a friend that actually wrote a book of called Fantastic Fallacies and Where to Find Them.
Oh, nice.
And it lists a whole bunch of them, right? So
yeah, that was the cool thing is I don't remember them all, but I love those guys that I know Matt Dillahunt guys, a couple of friends of mine, but they know all of the names, the Latin names for them. Oh, that's
Argumentum
Ever,
ad
blah, blah, blah,
populum.
add, da, 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 right, add popular. And I'm just like, I just recognize the fallacy, and I'm like, oh, that's an argument from this or an argument from that. But I love it, those guys that have it right at their head. Oh, well, that's
Matt's hilarious.
Yeah,
he's right there with that shit.
I love it. I mean, not that sometimes people don't know what the hell that is, and you have to explain it to them anyway. Well, what you're doing is you are arguing from this ridiculous point of view that is a fallacy because X, Y, Z. But it's still, I love being able to have that, all those philosophical terms at your recall anytime you need. You know, that was the cool thing about taking that class and going through articles and arguments and things and finding all the fallacies was like, that was our homework. It was so cool. And it was like, you come back and he's like, you missed 5. You're like, oh, how did I miss those 5 fallacies? Like, it was really cool. It was a cool class.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They should make that like regular curriculum in high schools, if you ask me.
Dude, I think middle school, get them early. I mean, nowadays, I mean, conspiracy.
That's their tactics. Get them early.
Exactly. And if you notice now, like conspiracy theories have always been a problem, but lately they are insane, and they are, I mean, hugely popular and crazier than I've ever seen. Like,
I don't know why they're popular.
It's like the QAnon stuff and the Bill Gates is chipping us, and it's like stuff that sounds like comedy. Stuff that's honestly the hard thing about doing comedy is you do satire.
You nailed it. Especially with the Bill Gates thing. They're on their phones going, Bill Gates is tracking us. What do you think your fucking phone is doing, idiot?
Right. And that's the other thing is that it always cracks me up. I'm like, if Bill Gates, first off, why would Bill Gates want to track you? He's a software engineer, a billionaire. He doesn't need to sit around and watch you do whatever you do. But second of all, if Bill Gates wanted to track you, he would do it via the Microsoft phone. He wouldn't start. He doesn't even own a pharmaceutical company. Like, and if he did own a pharmaceutical company, wouldn't it be easier for him to buy the company that makes the flu vaccine and just put it in something we're already taking? Why would he need to why would he need to create a virus, which we've already proven through genetics? They've already mapped the genome. They know where it started, so they know it wasn't man-made. But why would he need to? Then you would think that if he was going to do that, so he could have a vaccine, that he should already have the vaccine ready, so that when the virus comes out, he can wait a couple months and go, I've got a vaccine and it works for this, and put it through phase 3 trials. Because now he's got to start a vaccine. He's got to start a vaccine company. He's got to work on a vaccine, and he's got to beat the other 30 companies that are also looking for a vaccine. And he's got to beat it via trials and get all that sort of stuff and hope it works. And if somebody else beats him to it, he missed his opportunity to chip us all. Like, it's so beyond insane that if I did a bit, like, I mean, that's the kind of bit that I would do in the back where I'd be like, well, this is what's happening. Bill Gates, the software engineer, is like, I could do a bit about that, and in the past people would laugh. Nowadays people are like, yeah, that sounds logical. It's like satire is not even yeah. It's weird though, right? Like, I mean, how many times have you read satire now, read The Onion, and went, it's not even funny because that actually happened?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
No,
I just said, like, how often do you read like The Onion or something nowadays, satire, and it's not even funny because it's just too close to real?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few articles that they put out there, and you know it's The Onion, but you're reading the headline, you read a little bit, and you're like, is this parody? It's got to be. It's The Onion. It's The Onion. It's got to be. Right.
But then you watch Fox News, and you're like, wait, which one's the parody? I can't figure it out.
Fox News is pretty much the parody to me, anyways. Those guys are fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, it's in some countries they make them. Some countries don't have it, and some countries make them put a entertainment only warning on there, which is pretty sad.
Uh-oh. I got someone in the chat that's saying that Bill is the biggest pharma.
Oh yeah,
he's a software engineer, man. He's not a pharmacy company.
I know
he owns a company. Big, so what?
And I mean, it's so wacky. There are at least there are like 20 or 30 pharma companies looking for a vaccine. We don't know which one it's going to be that gets it. I mean,
there's a bunch of different ones on trial right now.
Yeah, and it's like you would think that if you've got this master plan, your company would be right there, would already be working on something. Like the day it pops up, they'd be like, "We've got something in phase 1 trials." Like, yeah, we were looking for another coronavirus, but look at this one. Like, you would think that they would put that in. They wouldn't wait for it to happen and then hope to be the ones that win the race to the vaccine. Like, that's just fucking nuts.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like you were saying earlier, with the reading the genome of the virus, they know it was not man-made. So so obviously nobody planned this. This wasn't. This is just one of those things, and they've been saying though for years that we could expect something like this to pop up, like a superbug of some kind, right? That could affect us pretty harshly, and this one has definitely.
Yeah, a statistic I heard. I mean, I don't think this is the Spanish flu by any stretch. I don't think it's as harsh as the Spanish flu.
Well, the Spanish flu ended up in bacteria.
Was it a bacteria?
Yeah, ultimately they found out it was a bacteria. Yeah,
and it killed 50 million people.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing that I found last night that was interesting is within the first 6 months, it had only killed 75,000 people in the first 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting that it went on to kill 50 million. And we're at 200,000 in that same amount of time. We're at 2.5 times what it did in that same time that it went on to kill 50 million. Now, I don't think COVID is going to go on to kill 50 million like that. I highly doubt that. But interesting that the thing that went on to kill 50 million was only at 75,000 in the first 6 months. Like, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So it's just the way it was. I mean, they ended up coming up with antibacterials, right? So that probably helped, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
they'll come up with something for this COVID thing eventually. Yeah. I was reading about one that they're doing where they're able to turn off its ability to attach itself to the lung, which is interesting. But I don't know how far they've come with that yet.
Well, I also heard today, and I don't know how much there is behind this. It's just anecdotal evidence. But in Brazil, there's a gazillion cases in Brazil. But they're finding that people who've had dengue fever, which is a big thing down there, the people who had it's like a mosquito virus. The people who had dengue fever have some sort of immunity to COVID.
Why would that be?
I'm not sure, or that they're not as affected as heavily, or something like that. I just heard it. It was on it was a news story on I was on Saturday. I'm not sure which, if it was I switched between NPR and the Progressive Channel on the Sirius XM, and I was listening to both back to back, and on one of them it said they put that story out there. They said there was some sort of relationship between dengue fever and people having a better reaction, like a more immune response to COVID. Yeah.
Could be.
I don't know.
Could be
interesting.
Maybe it's the same antibodies that tackle these.
Yeah.
Maybe, and they've been strengthened by the dengue. And who knows? Yeah. I'm sure if that's a thing, we'll hear about it eventually.
Yeah, it'll come. It'll be.
I'll get dengue fever, and then we'll all be immune to
yes. COVID-19. It'll be as big as hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some funny fucking pictures. The inhalers. They had the Lysol inhalers. So you could inhale the Lysol. Fuck. Like, who says we could inject bleach and shit like that? It's like, what's wrong with you, dude?
It's so funny. I had so many conservative friends yesterday posting something about Joe Biden. Joe Biden slipped and said we've had 200 million cases or 200 million deaths. Like, anyway, I've done that. I meant to say 1,000, and I said, I meant to say 2,000. I said 200,000, or things like that. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, so he slipped and said million instead of 1,000. He didn't mean million. He knows it's not million. Yeah. It was a slip of the tongue. On the same day, yesterday, Trump was at his little rally, and a plane flew over. I don't know if you saw this. Hilarious. Plane flies over, and he goes, "Look at that. The sound's over there, but the plane's over there. It's like it's really fast. It's what they call hydrosonic."
Hydrosonic.
He goes hydrosonic. He goes, what I call it is super duper, because hydrosonic is very hard to say. A lot of people don't understand hydrosonic, so I call it super duper. I'm like,
super duper sonic.
I'm like, he called it a hydro. What is it? A toothbrush? Like this? And you're worried because Biden slipped up and said million instead of 1,000. Like this guy actually thinks it's super duper hydrosonic airplanes. Isn't it weird how it sounds over there? And it's mind-boggling to me every day. You're lucky you don't have this guy.
Yeah, we've got Justin, but he's not the best ever, but he's a fucking hell of a lot better than Trump, that's for sure.
Dude, yeah, this guy.
Let me tell you something. There's a big rumor going around here, and I'm not one for like following rumors or shit like that, but this one just strikes me as this is really eerie. If you look at a picture of Justin Trudeau and you look at a picture of Castro, because Castro and his dad, Pierre, and his dad's wife, I can't remember her name, they were close. And she was with Castro from a certain point. And Justin, if you look at a picture of him and Castro together in Castro's youth, they're like twin brothers.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I've never looked at that.
Dead serious, man. Google that shit later.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
It's fucked up. He looks like Fidel Castro. It's just like, whoa.
But, well, I'd rather Fidel with Trump. There was a movie in the 70s with called Any Which Way But Loose.
Yep, remember that. Clint Eastwood.
Starred an orangutan.
Yep.
And that looks like Trump.
Clyde.
So, Clyde, yes. Right turn, Clyde.
Right turn, Clyde, yeah.
Exactly. I think Clyde might be Trump's. You put them right next to each other and you're like, wait, is Trump's father really Clyde from Any Which Way But Loose?
Yeah, Trump's Clyde's awesome.
I'm not saying I need to see a birth certificate. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah. How come nobody asked Trump for his birth certificate?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I kind of stole that bit. That's actually Bill Maher. Bill Maher did say that he was an orangutan, I think, and I think he actually asked for his birth certificate.
Really?
Yeah, and then Trump tried to sue him for $5 million.
Oh fuck!
Because I don't know, but Bill Maher said something about, well, if anyone can prove to me that he's not related to an orangutan, then I'll give $5 million to a charity. And then Trump produced his birth certificate, apparently. He said, here's proof. Give me my $5 million. And Trump and Bill Maher was like, screw you. And then he tried to sue him. Of course he lost.
Of course he did.
It's hilarious.
No one's going to take a case like that seriously. Anyways, I'm surprised he even tried.
I know, right?
But did Bill Maher donate the $5 million to charity?
I don't think he did. I think we're still trying to get the $1 million from Trump from Elizabeth Warren taking a DNA test. So
right.
Yeah.
I think one of the funniest things I've heard Trump say, other than now the whole hydrosonic thing, because that just fucking I'm on the inside, I'm still dying. But this whole the whole thing, shit. I just forgot what it was. I hate it when that happens. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Let's get into. Oh, he has. I'll remember it in a few minutes.
Yes.
But with your mom being into all the woo stuff, and like, did you ever, like, out of curiosity, did she ever do anything like ghost hunting? Did you go with her on something like that, or did she ever go to a house to try and get psychic readings for the spirits and stuff like that?
No, I mean she would do readings on people, and the funny thing is that I noticed it when I started getting older, and started paying attention to skepticism. I would watch guys like James Randi and people like that would do cold reading, magicians who would do cold reading, and then I recognized that my mom does all that stuff, but she's never been trained to do it. I mean, she may have been trained doing with her psychic friends or whatever, but it's something she just does naturally, the cold, but she's doing all the same techniques that they do in cold reading.
Sure.
So I witnessed a lot of, when I was young, like her do readings with people and people, oh my God, your mom's amazing. And she got all this stuff. And the one thing that was interesting, and this is how scientific I was at 7, or how my mind was.
Yeah.
And this convinced me for a while, until I realized that I'm I must be remembering it wrong, and I must have done something. I must have done something else to cheat it, right? I don't know what I did, but I went to the haunted house that I said, the barn, with a friend, and we swore that this ghost of a woman, came out and chased us out. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. We were like, oh my God, and we ran home. And so the woman who was dead, that lived there back in the day, her husband was, like I said, he was a famous, captain in the army or whatever the deal was. He was part of the early, gold rush, the early 40s, the people moving to California in the 1800s. And so I had a friend who had all those Time Life Old West books. So I called him and I said, and I think this is like, maybe I might have been actually 8 or 9. And I called my friend and I said, hey, you have those books. See if there's any pictures of this guy, Captain Love, and his wife. And if there are, bring that book to school. Don't mark the page. And he brought the book in, and I leafed through the book, and I said, that's the person I saw. And it was the correct one. And
really?
But I think about it, I'm like, that was a good year or two after the event happened. Because I was, like I said, the event happened when I was 7, and I think it was like 8 or 9, 3rd or 4th grade when my friend had the book. And I wonder if it was a read he gave me when I got to the page, or if I recognized the house.
Maybe.
They were standing in the front,
It could be lots of reasons of how that came to you so quickly.
It could have been the only woman, the first woman. It could have been that I recognized Love because I think I'd seen him before on pictures of stuff, Sure. But I remember I was like, oh, whoa, a ghost, Never saw the ghost again other than that one. Never saw anything else ever weird happen. And that was the only thing that ever happened. And but I think back and I go, probably, I'm sure that I might even be remembering it wrong. Who knows? I mean,
yep. Very true.
He may have marked the page. He may have said, when I don't know. But I do remember for a while that convinced me. I was like, yep, I saw her and then picked her out of a book,
It must be her.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to look back on that situation now as an adult and go, hey, well, watch myself do that and go, oh, what is it that I read, or what is it that I caught that made me do that,
Yeah. That would be kind of cool if you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Because people often think, true what you're saying about our memories, people often think or think of our memories as being like a DVR, like it just permanently records things happening. And that's not the case, not by a long shot.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, every time we remember something, we're actually remembering the last time we remembered it.
Right.
And it's been embellished. And then we're remembering from that and, remembering all the way down, like turtles all the way down kind of thing. But, and every time we remember something, we add detail.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to fill in the gaps of the parts of that memory we can't remember. So every time you're not remembering. So I can't tell you how many times I've retold a story and something's been added to it.
Sure. And also we go off people's reactions. So if you're telling a story and someone seems to be responding to a part of it, you embellish that part more. Or if you're saying it and you're like, well, God, that doesn't sound that interesting. Sometimes you put stuff that makes it a little interesting. And then the next time you remember it that way and you build on that. And one of the things that I do a lot of these, a lot of back when we were allowed to go places, I used to do a lot of skeptic conferences and, do comedy at them, sometimes speak and whatever. And I wish I could remember his name, but there was I think he was like a forensic psychologist, somebody in the psychology world that did a lecture at one of the skeptic conferences. And he did all this stuff about memory and all this stuff about, like one of the ones that he did was not so much about memory, but about how your brain works. He did this thing where he played music backward, said, do you guys hear anything? Anyone hear anything? A couple people were like, I heard, it and what, and, yeah, okay. He goes, I'm going to play it back. And he played it back. And on the screen, he put words, lyrics. So you read those while he played the music. And I don't remember what the lyric, but it was something, like, the devil is your friend. The devil is coming for your daughter, right? Whatever. And it was like some Rolling Stone song or something like that, Led Zeppelin or something. And you heard it clear as day when you read the words, the devil is coming for you, the devil wants your daughter, right? And you're like, wow. And he goes, cool. Now I'm going to take the words away and play it backward again. And you could hear it. You couldn't stop hearing it at that point. Every time you played it, it was in your brain. And then I believe you went and changed the lyrics to something else, and you heard that when you read it. And some people heard the new one, and some people still couldn't get the old one out of their heads. And it was this whole thing of like, he suggests it, you hear it because it sounds, and then after that point, your brain has made. But the one that really threw me off, and I'm going to get some of the details wrong because I'm remembering it. But
was it Steven Pinker, maybe? Because he has a book called How the Mind Works.
Oh, you know, I don't know that it was Steven Pinker, although it might have been because I've done conferences with him before. I don't think it was though. But the one that I saw that was crazy is a story said about a woman who had been raped, and they picked the guy out of the line. They had a lineup, and she picked this guy out of the lineup. She goes, "That's the guy." So they went to trial. She said, "That's the guy." She was convinced that's the guy. They convicted the guy. The whole time the guy's like, "I wasn't even there. Had nothing to do with it." I can't remember what the DNA was. If it wasn't good at the time or his DNA didn't match, but she was like, "No, that's the guy." And then years later, he was in prison, and the guy, his cellmate or something, confessed to it. Another rapist was like, "No, I did that." So he got a retrial. It's crazy. It gets crazy though. He gets a retrial. He gets an appeals. And the new guy comes in and says, "It was me. This guy's innocent. I raped her." And she says, "No, that's not the guy that raped me. That's the guy that raped me." So he didn't get off on appeals. And then I think what it was is when DNA became better, they took the DNA, and the guy who admitted to it was the actual guy. And the other guy that had spent like 10 years in prison was totally innocent. But in her brain, the guy that raped her was the guy that she first saw. And I'm sure it had to do with that he looked a lot alike. It was a traumatic situation. But as soon as she picked him as the guy, that became the guy in her brain that was there on top of her doing whatever. And it was like, even after DNA evidence, it was still in her head that was the guy. And it's crazy to me how the brain recreated it with this guy's face for 10 years. The emotion and all this sort of stuff. Every time she replayed it in her mind, she replayed it with this wrong guy. Yeah. It's crazy. That stuck with me for so long.
It's unfortunate is what it is, because that poor guy had to sit in jail for 10 years or whatever. And of course, that happens unfortunately, it does. I've heard there now that with DNA sequencing and them being able to do all the testing like that, many people, the sad thing is a lot of them, like, especially if they're convicted of murder and on death row, a lot of them end up getting taken out before, and then they get all the evidence and, oh shit, it wasn't him. Yeah. That's happened a few times. And there are other cases where DNA has demonstrated that the convicted person was innocent. And it's unfortunate that happens, but it shouldn't happen anymore now, because we have the methods of don't worry, the fans in the audience love cats and these things. So
I have this one likes to get on the keyboard and turn everything off. So I'm going to let him sit over there. Yeah, sometimes we have three dogs and a cat. And the cat, sometimes a dog will jump, one of the little dogs will jump up here, and then the cat always gets up here and starts keyboard. So I got to keep him over there, but he's cool. He's mellow.
No, that's good.
All right, stay. Like a cat's gonna listen to me. Come on. It's bizarre how the memory works though. Like, I mean, that's why I love when people say, we're talking about deconversion or whatever. People say, "Oh, I had these memories, or I have this thing happen to me," and I'm like, so I have personal experience, and I hard to let that go. But I'm like, personal experience is the worst evidence, because it all goes through the filter of our brain. Like, I mean, I get what you mean. Like, should this thing happen to me and it's real, but your interpretation of why it happened is completely made up in your brain. Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
But, it's just,
we fill in the gaps through all our experiences.
Absolutely. And we fill them in with whatever we want. I mean, you get in a car accident and the paramedics save you. If you're an atheist, it's the paramedics that saved you. If you're Christian, it's Jesus that saved you. You know, it's like,
told you. Kitty.
Oh yeah.
And then there's always one of these. Hell is filled with cats.
That's true. No.
Yeah, no, you're right. The more I read, and I'm actually taking some of those great courses plus sort of things on how brain works and memory works and stuff like that, and it's fucking fascinating. Like I wake up every day and go, damn it, I don't even trust my own head anymore. You know, I don't even trust what I think anymore. You know,
I know.
It's like the more you learn, it's like I just want to turn it off and go on autopilot or something sometimes.
It's you know, I mean, and it's like we were talking about earlier with like the conspiracy theories and you know, with the Trump stuff. It's like I'm pretty sure I know I'm not crazy, but when I look around and I go, how is every other person I know believing this craziness?
Like flat Earth.
Yeah, flat Earth. And I mean, the QAnon pedophilia stuff is like off tracks. Like it's so crazy. And I get, I mean, yeah, there's those people out there. There are, you know, of course there are pedophiles and there are the Jeffrey Epsteins and there are the people in the world, but it's like, they're going after Tom Hanks and they're okay with the guy who is mentioned in the court papers of raping a 13-year-old being our president, but you're going after Trump? I mean, but you're going after Tom Hanks? It's like, it's just so weird to me. I'm like, that's, and once they get it in their head, it's like, you can't, you know, then they start remembering things, remembering big when it went, you know, it's like, it's crazy.
You know, I tested out a theory just recently, just a couple of weeks ago. I was hanging out with some friends downstairs in my apartment building because I try not to go anywhere. Like the people that I do know in the building and visit from time to time, one of them's kind of a shut-in right now because he's got issues with his stomach lining and stuff, so he doesn't go anywhere. So he's safe, and I only go to work and then come home or grocery shopping or whatever and come home. And I wear masks and I do all the shit you're supposed to. And we get tested where I work anyways every like week or so because we're an essential service. So I try not to get out there and get, because, you know, my mom's diabetic and I don't want to end up accidentally, you know, giving her something and killing her. Right. So anyway, but I tried, and I was, and I've only known the guy for about 6 years. And I thought, because I was reading, like I was telling you about the great courses stuff, I was reading a little bit on how you can trick people into thinking that they remember things. So I was like, because we went camping one time. Hey, dude, you remember that? Do you remember when we went camping and we were burning that fucker's furniture from his house? We were throwing like the dressers in there and we were having this huge bonfire, and somebody accidentally threw his girlfriend's purse in the fire. You remember that? And he's like, oh yeah. And she got really mad. And I'm like, yeah, she got all mad. And he started making shit up too, right? Just so that he would click with the memory.
Wow.
Like, because we were pretty drunk. So I knew that he may or may not, he might go, we didn't fucking do that. Or he would be like, you can see the wheels turning like a little hamster in his head on a wheel. And he's just going, oh yeah, I remember that. And I'm like, dude, we never did that. But that's because we were talking about neurology and shit and how the brain works, or neuroscience, I should say, and how the brain works. And he goes, you motherfucker. It's like he's just yelling at me after that. He goes, no more beer for you. I'm like, it's okay. I got more upstairs.
And we did that. We did it for other reasons, but years ago, my friends and I, a few other comedians, we invented a fake comedian. And we used to just talk about this guy. We'd make up fake bits like, oh, you know that bit that he does about, you know, about shaving his head? And, oh, how about that bit about how the Skittles got caught in the rain gutter? And we'd have all these dumb, you know, we would never say what the joke was, but just his bit about this. Oh, yeah. And we gave him a fake name and, you know, or gave him a name and whatever. And it was like three of us that would talk about it. And one of them, we got one guy on board that was Will Durst, who was at the time was pretty well-known comic from the Bay Area, a very, you know, good political comic and a legend up in the Bay Area. We got Durst to jump in on, like, you know, so there's three of us were making up this, talking about this guy. And our goal was, if we talked about it enough, could we get bookers and club owners to start asking about it? And which we did. We actually got, within a few months, we actually had a couple people say, hey, you know Bill Silverton, right? can you hook us up with Bill? And we kept the joke going on for like a couple years later. We'd run into each other. We'd be like, "Hey, you seen Bill? Oh, I haven't seen him in a while." But there actually was somebody in the green room at one point was like, "Oh yeah, I think I worked with that guy."
Really?
Yeah, like years later, like even months later, and wasn't like yes, I know him, but was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds familiar. I think I worked with that guy once. Is he kind of he got brown?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's the guy." But and we barely pushed it. We pushed it in a couple of clubs, just talked about him out loud to see if anybody would pick it up. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy how quickly people were like, "Oh yeah. Oh, I've heard of him."
Or I mean, there's multiple reasons why. I mean, people just they want to be part of the conversation or part of the scene or whatever, and I think I remember. So it's like I could possibly have worked with somebody that fits that description, but I'm not entirely sure. So they start creating their own memories of something that never happened.
Right, and the more you can confirm it and go, "Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, okay," and then they start creating this memory, and pretty soon it's a real thing.
Now we're back to the whole psychic thing and how they trick you into answering their questions by saying somebody whose name starts with an M, a Mary or Megan?
Mom?
Mom? Mom.
That's it. It's Mom. How about somebody you have a male figure with a D? Dad? Yeah. Yes, you have a dad in your family.
Yeah, he says his name's Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's and people eat that shit up, and it blows me away. So, Ian, with the comedy and stuff, and I'll say it again for everyone who's new in the chat. There's a link below to Ian's channel, and I highly recommend you go and check out some of his, as you dub it, skeptic comedy, because it's and I don't mean the air quotes as a bad thing. It's like, how you quote things as being titled or whatever.
Right.
That's more what I mean. So go and check it out. I was listening to, I think, your latest one when I was setting this up, and it was tough because I was kind of laughing some of the time, and I would hit the wrong fucking letters and shit when I was typing. Nice. So anyway, it's definitely worth it.
Thank you.
But how, like, comedy and then I see comedy director, I get the connection there, but MMA fighter trainer, how did that happen?
Well, that's kind of funny because that's just my hobby. Like, so, I started when I was a kid, when I started boxing when I was like 6. Mm-hmm. And then, watched too many Bruce Lee movies. I did all the, karate and kung fu and all that sort of stuff. Wrestled a couple of years. Like I did anything contact combat sport. I've been doing since I was 6.
I took judo.
Yeah, judo's fantastic, by the way.
5 years, man.
Really? Oh, yeah. See, that's judo is an underrated one. People don't think about judo a lot of times as a martial art. I don't know why, and they don't think of wrestling as a martial art. And
I know.
It's like it's weird because they're both. I remember when I was a kid, like the wrestlers would always be, "Oh, watch out, that guy knows karate. He'll kick your ass." And you're like, now you look in hindsight, you're like, the wrestler would have spanked me if he wanted to take me down on the concrete, double leg me when I threw a karate kick. I would have been toast, but they didn't think they were fighters. They were wrestlers. It's a different thing, But yeah, and then I did Jeet Kune Do and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, cool. And I've just done all of it since I was
Jeet Kune Do. That's Bruce Lee's.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And so like 92, when I moved to LA for the first time, moved to LA, then I moved back to Bay Area, then back to LA. When I moved to LA the first time, I had already done a bunch of other similar stuff: Wing Chun, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Kempo, all these other things, boxing. So I moved and I wanted to try. There was a school that was Bruce Lee's original students, Richard Bustillo, Dan Santo. And so I went and started at the IMB Academy, which is Richard Bustillo's school. And I did that for 4 years. It was also the home of the U.S. Muay Thai team at the time. Like he taught all these Muay Thai guys. So I did a lot of Muay Thai, a lot of Kali Eskrima, because they're both Dan and Richard were both Filipinos. So they brought the Filipino arts to America. So I learned all that sort of stuff. And then when I moved back to the Bay Area in 96, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been doing that ever since. And then, I just in 2000, I wanted to get back in 2003, I guess. I had a few years off of not really doing anything and being on the road and getting fat and out of shape and all this sort of stuff. And I was trying to force myself to train. So I started teaching a couple nights a week. And I didn't know there was no name mixed martial arts at the time. The UFC was just karate versus kung fu versus wrestling, whatever. So I had done wrestling and jiu-jitsu and boxing and Muay Thai and all this stuff. So I just smushed it together and I called it Fight Science, because I was like, well, it's not martial art and I'm a sciencey guy. So I started calling it Fight Science and started training people. And within about a year, somebody invented the term mixed martial arts. So then it became, instead of my style, it became my brand. So then it was Fight Science MMA. And then
very cool.
17 years later, I've got, I've fighters at my gym. I've had several gyms that I've been part of, and I own my own gym now, but I've been part of 2 other gyms as a owner. And trained fighters from UFC, Bellator, somebody fighting Pride once. Like, we've had people in all the shows, and it's just something I do for fun, but it takes up most of my time. And luckily, between, being a writer and being a comedian and doing voiceover work and having a wife who I've been with for 30 years now, who has a really great steady job and has the healthcare and all that sort of stuff, it's allowed me to go in and out of the fight stuff and not have to stop doing it. And it's now awesome. The gym was going well until COVID. Now we've been shut down for 6 months, but
You going to reopen, or?
That's the plan. We're working on the whole loan thing, the non-payback.
If fighting, you can't really socially distance, so it's kind of a challenge, right?
That's the thing. Like when they open up for 2 weeks and shut down again. When we opened up for 2 weeks, the goal was no touching. Or they said there was no touching. But what we did was we're like, look, you can't not touch. You're in a room, you're breathing hard, you're kicking pads, you might even be wrestling, all this sort of stuff. So we had designated training partners. And I made a rule that everyone had to be tested to come back to the gym. And then they had to keep social distancing. And if they did anything in a contract that said if they did anything that might have put them in danger, go to a bar, go to Vegas, go on vacation, whatever, that they would have to quarantine and do a new test. Yep. And when they come in, they have like 1 or 2 or 3 training partners, like maybe people they live with, roommates, friends that they're comfortable with. And they just trained with those people in a designated area, because you can't do what we do without contact. It's impossible.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're just, mitigating as best as possible and doing, and now, like I said, now we're closed, but we're working out some stuff. You can do outside training. You can, we still have a fight team, and the fighters are still, the UFC is still going. So we still have fighters who need to train. So we're working our best way around with the fighters to get them training. But yeah, the gym is open. It's completely closed to regular people. I'm doing some other stuff for some money, like some privates, and renting out the space to, like, I have a dad and a son who just want a place to train. I'm like, well, they live together. They can come in on Thursday nights and they get the place, Yep. And so that kind of stuff. My neighbor who owns a.
So, like, if people come in and use the place, are they responsible for cleaning afterwards? Like,
yes.
Disinfecting?
Yep.
Okay.
We have all mops, towels, and all this stuff. So they have to, when they come in there, they have to clean everything they touch, all the equipment.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then I clean every morning when I get in, and when we're in. If I come in, anytime I come in to do privates or anything, I clean before, then I clean after as well. So yeah, and so we're keeping pretty vigilant about it. And like I said, we've had a couple guys who are like, "Hey, I went to Mexico with my family for a week." I'm like, all right, cool. Wait a week or 2, go get a test. When it's negative, you can come back in the gym and train with your brother or whatever it is you were doing before. But you got to make sure. And so far, everyone's been really good about it. And no one's been, good. Yeah. I mean, the guys are all really responsible. There's a lot of knuckleheads in MMA, but I have a really good group of people that are responsible, and I beat it in their heads every day. I said, you know what, I have
literally,
yeah, exactly, literally and figuratively, yeah. And I'm like, you never know. Like this kid lives with his grandpa, and and this guy. So it's like, be safe. And everyone's pretty respectful and safe. And like I said, we there's not much we can do right now anyway, because we're just close. But we're hoping that we're going to be able to open in the next couple of months. And when we do, it's going to have to be the same thing, temperature checking, and we do our own contact tracing. Everyone has to sign in on a sheet of paper when they come into the gym, so I know who's there that day. So if anything happens, I can call all those people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not that much. It's a few extra things that need to be done outside of the norm routine. And at least you're not doing this in Florida, because you'd have a bunch of fucking anti-maskers and the stuff that's going on there blows me away.
If I can do it at the gym, you would think that maybe we could do it on a national level. I don't know. I mean, the fact that I was so envious when you said we get tested every week at my work. I'm like, you have to wait in a line. I mean, LA, Los Angeles, and California are better. People love to. Los Angeles has got 700,000 cases. Yeah, we also have 40 million people, and 13 million of us are on top of each other. Like, someone tried to compare us to South Dakota the other day, and I said there are 885,000 people in South Dakota and 18,000 cases. That's 2%. Here in California, we have 700,000 cases and 40 million people. That's 1.8%. I'm like, so we're doing better than South Dakota. And the fact is,
numerically,
there are 885,000 people in my neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's like
we got Dakota in my neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and South Dakota is a pretty big place. It's spread out. You're not right on top of each other. So it's like there is a method to what we're doing here, and it sucks that California is locked down and all that sort of stuff. But we're huge, and we're 40 million people, almost 39 million people, and like I said, crammed 13 million people just in Southern California on top of each other. And it's going to take a while. We knew we were going to be a slower burn because we got a head start. We didn't get slammed like New York did. We had a slow burn, and it's been slow and steady. We tried to open up, and we had some spike, and now we're getting it back down. But I mean, I figured it was going to be like this in California. I knew it was going to be patches of clusters, and it was eventually it was going to take a while for us to slow everything down. But we've got money here. We've got people who are pretty conscientious. Although again, there are pockets here. You go to like Bakersfield or Orange County, and you've got these like, my friend calls them mask holes.
Mask holes. Oh yeah. There are. You're going to get them everywhere, I think. And but in California, I'm just surprised that people like Gwyneth Paltrow haven't popped up with her little woo-woo cure for COVID-19 yet.
The COVID vaginal egg.
Exactly. You can buy those scented candles that smell like well, never mind.
Exactly, that hydrochloric candle.
Inhale it a few times and no more COVID.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to breathe in the hydrochloric incense.
Yeah. It's nutty, and there's a lot of people out there that are trying to take advantage of this by selling garbage like that, as like we saw Trump doing with the whole, let's inject bleach and shit like that. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, buddy?
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen.
I'm trying to think of, but that's all right.
Yeah, and sunlight. That was the other one. Sunlight. Well, man, the stuff he said. I was putting a list of all the things he said that when he said herd mentality, that was the biggest. Did you see that one? The biggest Freudian slip I've ever heard in my life. He meant to say herd immunity, and he said it's eventually going to go away by herd mentality.
Herd mentality. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's nuts. But we, I mean, I think what they're planning to do, we just had Ruth Bader Ginsburg die, and they're voting on the constitutionality of the American the ACA on November 10th, which is right after the election, right here, the week after. So I think what they're trying to do is slam somebody through, because what it looks like to me, they're trying to get rid of the ACA, but they're trying to get rid of pre-existing condition clause that we have. And if they do that, they're going to determine that COVID is a pre-existing condition, and anything else you die of will not be covered by your insurance. That's what they're trying to do here. And it's really? Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Mark my words. Hopefully we can block it. But if that happens, those are the couple of things they're doing. The other thing that they're doing that Trump said today, he won't concede the election. He is already gaslighting about the election is bad, ballots are bad, mail-in ballots. And he wants to stack the court so he can challenge it constitutionally and overturn the election. Those are the two things he's doing. And it's, if people don't see parallels to Nazi Germany, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, this is straight up fact. That's what he's trying to do. But yeah, they're gonna make COVID a pre-existing condition.
How could they possibly do that?
If everything's private run insurance and there's no protections for people with pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies can just say, well, you died of diabetes, but you had COVID. So because you had that, because you had diabetes, we're not going to, either diabetes will be the pre-existing condition or COVID will be the pre-existing condition. And they'll say that one makes the other one, your insurance is now void because
neutralize each other.
Right. Exactly. Because you didn't die of COVID, you died of diabetes. And that's a pre-existing condition, not COVID. That's what they're trying to do. So they don't have to pay all these COVID bills. And we're going to get people stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical bills. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it comes the week after the election. So his goal is to win the election and then jam this through and be like, sorry, screw you, I'm done.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully, Joe Biden's looking really good. Hopefully he wins big and there's nothing they can do about it and they just force Trump out.
Oh, he's better than fucking Trump. But
oh my God, a million times better. Yeah, he wasn't my favorite, but a million times better. It's not even the same ballpark. But yeah,
well,
I can talk Trump all day, so we won't do that.
Yeah.
Especially for you.
We're scared enough as it is. Let's just stop talking about the guy. We might accidentally summon him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we don't want to do that because then I'll be forced. Being Canadian, I'll be forced to smack him in the head with a hockey stick. And although I'd really like to do that,
yeah, would you?
or at least do a slap shot right to the fucking teeth and knock a few out.
That would be nice.
Yeah, like I just buy gold ones and plug them in there and be all, yeah, my grill and shit like that. So
try to use the black coat.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Ian, we're pretty close to the hour. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to shill out? Like, you got any upcoming shit coming up, or should we take a quick break and do a little bit of an after party, or what do you think?
Yeah, sure. And nothing really coming up. Though I will say that if anyone hasn't seen, like you said, my special critical thinking's on my YouTube page, and I put up there for free after the distributor had some issues and didn't pay me any of my residuals from my yeah. Then they went out of business. So I took it back, and then I figured I'll just make it free. So I put it up on my YouTube page. And the other one I'm still getting. There's another one on Amazon Prime. And it's on all the VODs. Yeah, so it's called Extraordinary.
No.
Yeah,
okay.
So Extraordinary I released it about 2 or 3 years ago, and that was pretty good too. So there's Extraordinary, and then Critical and Thinking, which is on my website Prime. Please go watch Extraordinary. It's new.
I will. Different. I have the Amazon Prime, so I have one of those fucking Roku jobs, right? Like I get tired. See, my roommate pays for all the regular cable, which I still steal.
Right. That's fine. That's what you do with cable. You steal it.
Exactly. But I have the Amazon Prime and and all the other the good channels like the Netflix and shit like that, right?
It's all you really need.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the stuff that I actually want to see is on the channels that I have. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you can every channel's got an app too, so you can download the app if you need to.
Yep. Watch on the go.
Exactly.
Just not while you're driving, people. Please.
Right. Exactly. On your phone.
Yeah,
but
scares the hell out of people when they're in the back seat. So, but that's awesome. I'm going to definitely check out that one. Extraordinary. And that's a great name because that's one of the quotes that I use at the end of the after parties. I do 2 quotes that I do at the end of this show and then at the end of the after party. I always quote someone famous. And at the end of this one, it's a Christopher Hitchens one. But before I do that, I just want to say, Ian, man, it's been a blast chatting with you, dude. It's awesome. Yeah, and your comedy stuff is fantastic. And I've yet to see any of your MMA stuff, but I'm sure you probably got some little videos out here and there that we might be able to find.
Yes, indeed. Fight Science MMA, California, Los Angeles. Look it up. You can find it. We have a YouTube channel. There's some stuff.
Links below, guys. Links below. Oh, you have a YouTube channel for that too. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll have to add that.
I've got a million YouTube channels. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's easy to find.
Are they linked on your YouTube channel?
They should be. I'll check.
You can do that too.
I'll do that. Yes.
Look for them there, then, guys. That saves me having to go and re-edit everything. But that's okay.
Don't do that.
No, it's all good, bro. I try to promote people that I think are really cool and enjoy, and I do that. That's just what I do. And I think that all these stories, especially these, even though you didn't really have much of a deconversion, although you dipped your toe in the woo a little bit because of mom and stuff like that. But these are stories that are still important to hear.
Yeah.
And so thank you for joining me today, man. It's been a blast.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. And then, yeah, and what I should have done next time I'll remember all the times I've deconverted others.
Yes, that's right.
That's fun too.
Yeah, for sure. It does work. If you get people thinking, you can actually get them to start going, shit,
Yeah.
And then the dominoes start falling and it's all over.
It's just that first domino.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Well, yeah, Matt, we're going to jump in. I'll give me about a 10-minute break, and then I'll send you a brand new link for the after party. And if any of you guys out there would like to come in and say hello to Ian, just let me know either via Twitter or Facebook, and I'll give you a link. And you can come in and say, hey, Ian will probably stick around for a little bit anyways. Yeah. But, being a busy guy, he's got shit to do. So we can't expect him to hang out for like the 2 hours that we usually do these things, guys. So, but anyway, until next time, guys, with the whole COVID, were you going to say something?
No, I said thanks. Sweet.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you. Because of the whole COVID thing, guys, remember to be safe and be well, and above all, be kind. And I want to thank my amazing patrons. You guys are part of the reason I'm able to keep going and improve the show. And also, at the end of these shows, like I always say, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.